afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a small slice of history tonight as the Radical Esports Cup for the very first time visits the new iRacing circuit for Season 1 of 2026. It's the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez in Mexico. It plays host to round 4 of Season 1 of 2026 in the Radical Esports Cup here this season. Already have 3 rounds, Sebring, Alton Park and Catalunya playing host to a pretty mixed season so far of the broadcasting races we've done. Andre Castro from last time out has not quite been on the same form. We've had 3 different winners as well. Looking forward to maybe getting a 4th in 4 rounds here tonight. Myself, Larry Ronman's taking you through the action with Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras here tonight on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing YouTube channel as well. Good afternoon, Ron. It's good to be on a new circuit, a new venue, and history being made tonight. The first ever time we've been here in the Radical Esports Cup.
Yeah, it is really going to be a venture off into the unknown. These draft monsters always do well on these tracks that have some pretty long flat-out blasts, and here in Mexico City, we have most certainly got that. Really looking forward to seeing what style of racing that we have got from this round of the championship as we try and ring out to a conclusion the first third of what has already been a rather fantastic season, it must be said. Very competitive, lots of different winners, and some new names appearing both in these races and in the overall season top 10.
Yep, absolutely. And here are some of those names inside the top 10 overall. Not all of whom we've seen too much of. We have seen Peter Evening win at Alton Park. He's currently leading the overall standings ahead of Christoph Lipp, who won the opening round of our season anyway at Sebring. Havik Gullikson is in 3rd place. He's been up there in our broadcasting race as well. Same for Katil Larson, James Barry, who'd round out the top 5. Heinz Braun 6th ahead of George Gonzaga, Sebastian Lipp, Andre Castro. JP Emmond is the only driver we haven't seen up in the top 10 in our races, but he is in the top 10 overall in the iRacing standings. From next week, by the way, we'll give you our own RaceSpot TV standings from what streams we've been doing. 19 degrees Celsius out on the racetrack at the moment. That is not very warm at the moment for the Americans among you. That's 67 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. The real notable thing about the conditions, though, Ron, that this venue is unchangeable. It's 2,200 metres or over 7,000 feet in the air, high altitude here in Mexico City, and that means not much slipstream at all. So despite the fact this circuit has some very long straights, there may be less overtaking chance than you may orthodoxly think.
Yeah, no, compared to some of the races that we have run throughout this season, the others that we will be running, the air is going to be so thin. I think it was in the I'm trying to remember what special it was. I believe it was a Bolivia special for Top Gear when they had come down off a volcano, and Jeremy Clarkson said that the air was so thick at that point compared to what was at the top of the mountain. It was like they were breathing in soup. For these SR10s, they're going to be struggling. The downforce is going to be a heck of a lot lower, which is going to be a big worry heading off through the S's here in the mid-sector. And cooling, you got to think about that as well. But the main worry, at least for some maybe, is the fact that the slipstream isn't going to be as potent, because even though they're still the exact same race cars, still punching a big hole in the air is a heck of a lot thinner, so the draft isn't going to be nearly as strong as we do see from other ends of the championship.
Yep, indeed. Next week at Daytona, it's going to be monumental draft, given the fact they're at sea level down in Florida, and we're certainly not at sea level up here in Mexico City, that is for sure. On board with Christoph Lipp, who's already won a race of our broadcasted races this season. In fact, he's not finished off the podium when we've been broadcasting the Radical Esports Cup so far this season, and he goes up to the top 3 with that qualifying time as well. But it's Sebastian Lipp, who's really showing some good form this season, who's up towards the top of the qualifying session at the moment. Sebastian Lipp won a couple of races of our broadcasting ones last season, but he was only in the top 10 on 4 occasions. This is a good opening time for him, although it has been usurped by James Barry and Havik Gullikson so far.
Yeah, and we have got, once again, a very competitive field here in the Radical Esports Cup. Now, considering that we've been going through the holidays at the start of Season 1 of 2026, and now just finally into the 2026 actual calendar year, we're starting to see some more of the familiar names pop up here, and seeing some names that we haven't seen before. I'm looking at the bottom end of the timing tower, seeing some drivers that I haven't seen in a while in the form of Lars Erik Freinland. Nice to see him out here on the racetrack, along with Robert Woodward, Heinz Braun, on Andre Castro at there as usual. Now, Ewan, considering this is the first time that you've been back here on the broadcast booth, I believe, for this season, I'm sure you've probably been tuning in and seeing the fact that Andre Castro has really struggled to get this season up and rolling, and it's kind of reflected in the fact that P4 qualifying result for him right now, probably one of his best thus far this season. It has not been a good start for him.
Yeah, it has been notable, hasn't it? The I don't say demise of Andre Castro, that's very dramatic, but he hasn't quite had the season that he had last time. Admittedly, in our broadcasted races, he won by 77 points last season, which is a monumental margin. Of course, 38 of those came in the last 2 weeks when Friedrich and Gullikson didn't score any, and he scored 38. But even so, so maybe it's a bit inflated as to what he deserved. But it has been notable. Look at the amount of iRacing team drivers as well who are up in front of him, by the way. It's Christoph Lipp who takes the pole with the only 37 of the session. James Barry alongside in second with Havik Gullikson and Sebastian Lipp then on row 2. There is Andre Castro from 5th position. George Gonzaga alongside, perennial top 10 finisher in our races here. Sully Rettinen and Till Larson are sharing row 4 in front of Robert Woodward and Heinz Brunn running out the top 10. Ollie Gullikson and Lars Erik Freidenlund are on row 6 at Chris Wetz, Claudi Casamijana and Ole Grieber, who will round out the 15 drivers in the field here tonight. Some new names down towards the bottom, and I think they'll have a chance to pick up a point or two with a maybe lowly top 10 finish based on the field we've got tonight.
Yeah, with that monstrous run down into turn number 1, I think that starting grid is basically going to be a loose guide as to how this race is going to go. Lots of unpredictability heading off into this one, as we have said already, Ewan. This is a true venture off into the unknown for this field, so I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of shenanigans we're going to see out there on the racetrack. My ears are getting blown out at the moment from the drivers just revving the crap out of these Ford EcoBoost engines. I may have to go to a hearing doctor after this is said and done, get some hearing aids in. But for now, I'm going to enjoy this great racing before I have to go seek medical attention.
They're not in danger of blowing the engines up, even at this altitude, but they do want to get rid of those grams of fuel. It all matters to them, and that's why they're revving on the grid at the moment. Still waiting for Andre Castro to get onto the grid at the moment. Same for Chris Wetz as well, who's taking his time. There's no rush, I suppose. So we'll wait for them in the next minute or so. 14 laps tonight, by the way, here at the Mexican Grand Prix circuit. This one is. So hosts the Formula 1, has done for the last 10 years or so. Now, maybe more, actually. It is more these days. A good venue to have on iRacing. At the head of an exciting year for iRacing, by the way, as far as the Grand Prix circuits, especially, that are going to be added into the system. Looking forward to all of that as we get underway here from the newest iRacing creation. The Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez round of the Radical Esports Cup is underway for the very first time, and it's a good start for Christoph Lipp. But do you want to be in the lead on that run towards turn number 1? It's always nice to be in second, getting the trap, and here comes Havik Gullikson. He looks to the inside. He's got his nose alongside. He can't quite get through though, and that's Lipp who holds on in front. Gullikson next. Then it's James Barry and Sebastian Lipp who round out the top 4. A clean start all the way through, and Christoph Lipp survives the run to turn 1.
Yeah, that is a Christmas miracle. Let's see though as they head their way downtown into the second chicane, shall we say, of this racetrack. Look at James Barry trying to get a move done, but a convincing start for the Brit. He's had some good results thus far this season, and even said to our own Mr. Jared Gregory after last week's broadcast that he is gunning for the crown here in season 1 of 2026. It's been a while since that driver was able to visit victory lane. He was able to do it a little bit earlier on this season, but it's been a long time since he's been a consistent race win contender. Well, he's back to form, currently holding on to second and now trying to chase down his teammates.
It's the end of the S's section there, coming out of turn 11 and towards the stadium now, where a lot of the overtakes can happen down here. In towards turn 12, the entrance to the stadium, and then the hairpin, the slowest corner on this racetrack. This is in the background. This is a little bit of smoke, and that's Andre Castro, who broke too late there, by the way. And then, as he comes back on, Sully Rettinen tries to get past him. I've got to say, I don't think quite accounted for Andre Castro still be alongside him there.
As we see Sally run in with a spin off through the early stages of this lap. Now we can settle this race into some form of groove. Looking at the single file racing, Andre Castro getting abducted by a UFO there in the back of shot as Christoph Lipp trying to extend that gap over his teammate James Barry. We're expecting these top three to really be the ones contending for championships. James Barry and Havard Gullikson, they are no strangers to battling it out for a crown. In fact, they did 1 year ago in season 1 of 2025 here in the Radical Esports Cup. Gullikson was able to defeat James Barry, who at that point was the 3-time and reigning Radical Esports Cup champion. Christoph Lipp, meanwhile, I don't believe he's ever been able to taste the champagne of a season crown here in the Radical Esports Cup, but we know how strong he is in these cars. Multi-time race winner in these officials, a past champion of the Radical World Finals, a past champion in the Radical European Championship, a very quick racer indeed. He's got the #1 on his car for a very good reason. Christoph Lipp, strong in just about anything you put him in.
Absolutely he is. And Christoph Lipp holds the second over the rest of the field right now. This is looking back from James Barry, and Gullikson just hasn't quite got the run correct there through the S's. It's just the same that slipstream is less of a factor, so is dirty air, but it's still not a factor. Gullikson went a little bit wide there, maybe as a result, through turn 11. Here comes Sebastian Lipp as a result. Is he going to be able to maybe capitalise on that now as they through the final turn? Not like it used to be, this final turn, the high-speed committed right-hander that it used to be, but still a difficult traction zone. Have to be careful on the throttle, just modulate that as you come onto the front straight. Has Sebastian Lipp done a good enough job of that? I don't think he has, and neither has Gullikson in terms of making an overtake. It's very much Christoph Lipp's race at the front at the moment, and those in behind are not able to battle with one another. Castro, meantime, that's George Gonzaga through, who gets into the top 5 now.
Yeah, nice to see George out there on the racetrack. Always a force to be reckoned with in these SR10s. I believe he was the winner at the Nürburgring last season, but he's feeling a lot of pressure from your reigning series champion of Andre Castro. Gonna give him a bump draft as they head their way downtown into 4 and 5. Now, I talked about this about 24 hours ago here on RaceSpot TV on the Porsche Club of America broadcast. I think there's a lot of truth said and just, even in these slightly smaller Radical SR10s. That part of the racetrack is incredibly fitly in all sorts of race cars, most certainly sports cars, which can be a bit bigger and bulkier compared to their open wheel counterparts. That section of the circuit really tough to nail down consistently in these SR10s because this track is technical, very technical at that, but at the expense of some parts of the racetrack, I wouldn't necessarily say being cobbled together, but does feel a bit less flowy through certain parts. 4, 5, and 6 really being the prime example of that.
Well, that's a half defence there from James Barry. That's an admission of pressure that he is under right now. This is Ollie Gullikson, meantime, having a battle with Ollie Grieb, and Gullikson goes around. It's through turn 5 again, where Sully Rettinen went around, and Rettinen very nearly capitalised on that problem there for Ollie Gullikson. Another spin through turn 5 in just 3 laps here. On board with Sebastian Lipp. How close can he get here to Gullikson, who's going to give James Barry a go here? There goes Gullikson. Will Lipp try and take them both? No, he can't go either side. He was put off by both of them, and Gullikson's going to have to do this alone. Inside line for the first part, outside of the second. Here comes... Oh, contact! There's contact, and James Barry spins. Gullikson has to gather it up. It's a Sebastian Lipp second place, and a Lipp 1-2, as James Barry has to reverse before he gets back going again. Goodness me, he drops all the way to 10th.
And both of the Lipp brothers are going to be feeling very comfortable after that. Christoph Lipp now a 2.5 second gap at the front of the field, and you go from Sebastian back to Havard Gullikson. That's a pretty significant margin as well. Here's the replay. Barry taking liberties with that inside curb, contact being made. I think a little bit of desperation breaking out in both of those racers. Most certainly Barry trying to find any way in the book to hold on to that spot. Can't really go side by side, especially with a curb whack like that. These cars may be able to take a pummeling more often than not, but the curbs are something that can always throw off these race cars.
They certainly can. Trey Castro had something weird go on there. Was that a slowdown for him? You quite see. I'm looking away at the timing, but Castro has dropped to 5th place. He's behind Gonzaga again, but Larson and Woodward are a lot closer, and Heinz Braun actually rounds out the top 8 as things stand over the curves and to the final turn again. Still 10 laps to go here for Castro to rekindle this race, but again, it's happening again for him, isn't it? It's not quite the vintage Andre Castro that we saw last season.
I will say Andre Castro, one racer that I've got to cover in these Radical SR10s for many, many moons, even before these broadcasts were on RaceSpot.tv and the iRacing Esports Network. Got the opportunity to cover him here. Of course, we saw him running in the World Finals, the Radical World Finals in 2025, as well as the other World Finals qualifier to actually get into the event, as he didn't run in the other leagues to usually qualify into that special event. I've also gotten the opportunity to cover him in Formula Ford machinery. Very quick racer, a driver with real life props as well. A Team USA scholarship winner in 2021, but always one who's gonna be the one to tussle it up and go for the bold moves. That was a bold move into turn number 4. Bit of a lock up into the turn, but he still jumps his way up into 4th regardless.
Yep, absolutely. Castro is back again, but he's been there before in 4th position, and he's subsequently lost it. So see how he gets on with retaining the position this time round. He might have Kutzer Larson to help him because he's quite close in behind Gonzaga. That's not quite the line through 10 and 11 you need, though. You need a better run out of 11 to have a go by the time you get to the stadium section. And Woodward and Braun have just taken their eye off this because they're slightly fighting with one another as well. So Gonzaga's going to get a bit of a break there. When you're in these groups, you fear you're going to lose a lot of places in one go. That's not happened to Gonzaga here, at least not yet. Might have to mind out as he comes towards turn 1 as they all get onto the big long front straight again.
And as we ride on board with Kjetil Larsen in this IGL Coatings car, quick racer, but now he's gonna prove that the draft just isn't strong here. Look at that gap. It is just about stagnant at about a half a second, maybe closing up a little bit, but I think George Gonzaga is more likely to go for a move on Castro than Larsen is to go for a move on Gonzaga. They just kind of stall out as they head their way down the start-finish straightaway. Always talk about the unique nature of these Radical SR10s. There's really nothing like it on the iRacing platform. Even the Radical SR8 is quite a significant departure back into the past for Radicals when you look at what they run and race nowadays. Side-by-side racing going on with Heinz Braun and Robert Woodward right there in the back of shot. But couple unique race car with an incredibly unique racetrack. I said this last night here on RaceSpot. I'll say it once again. There's really no racetrack in the world that is as high elevation-wise as Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez. And for the racers in real life and even in the sim, that presents one a heck of a unique challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not so common at all, that's for sure. We are seeing, though, around iRacing, a lot of Hermanos Rodríguez at the moment. It's a well-visited place after it's just been added into iRacing, and you can understand why. People excited to drive it for the first time. So there aren't many other sims in the world that have it, so great to be using it in iRacing and getting its very first Radical Esports Cup event here in Season 1 of 2026. Over the start-finish line, Andre Castro seems to have the distance this time round on George Gonzaga, Kjetil Larsen, then Heinz Braun, who's in front of Woodward, and James Barry, who's catching these guys now. It'll be interesting to see what Barry can do, because he had that spin through turn 3 earlier, and he's going to be really, really interested in trying to get these guys behind him all over again, but it's going to take quite some overtaking, I think, in the second half of this race.
And getting the moves done here has proved to be a bit of a difficult task. You do have some heavy braking zones here, though. Look at turn number 1, turn 4, and heading off into the Ford Assault, the stadium section here at this racetrack. Haven't seen a driver go for a move there quite yet. It can sometimes end in catastrophe with the very high curbs all through that part of the track, but if you are feeling brave enough, you can maybe go for a move. So we'll have to see how these battles develop between now and the checkered flag. I think this one that we have in camera shot right now, probably the closest throughout the field, although there has been a little bit of tussling throughout the rest of it. Up in front with the two Lip brothers holding on to P1 and P2, still kind of in a league of their own. Vard Gullikson on an island of his own at the moment. You can just see him there at the bottom of the shot in that green IGL Coatings car. He's seeing Sebastian Lip just draw farther and farther away, and he's probably feeling a little bit lonely at this moment of the race. But this battle that we've got on screen right now, the interesting one that we will be keeping our tabs on, four very different racers in this. Andre Castro and Heinz Braun, the racers that are usually a bit more on the aggressive end. George Gonzaga and Kettle Larson, meanwhile, they're usually the ones that are a bit more concealed.
Is Gonzaga close enough this time? We enter the second half of the race. I think the answer might be yes. Oh, he switches! He looked like he was going to the outside. He switches to the inside instead, and he's up into fourth position. That was nicely done. A bit of a trick on Andre Castro, who I'm not sure was going to resist anyway. Castro, in the end, was forced to. And George Gonzaga moved forward into fourth position. That was a nice bit of trickery. Maybe the most unnecessary bit of trickery I've ever seen, because I think Castro might have let him have that anyway.
And you know, right as I was saying that George Gonzaga is always a racer that's going to take it easy, that is still true, but then I see a level of aggression that you don't usually see out of him. Here's a spin for Oleg Gullikson. That's coming out turn number 6, and bang, he's going to go into that inside concrete barrier. Going to pop that nose off. We're going to see that fly in a couple of moments' time. Nope, he toes back to pit lane before that front bumper can pop off like a misshapen Lego. But you know, George Gonzaga playing me like a fiddle right as I was singing about him being a very safe and calm racer. I will be with you there, Ewan. I think that was a little bit unnecessary, but hey, gives us a little bit of drama to show on the broadcast. Always a little bit of flair with the moves here in Mexico City, and George Gonzaga certainly gave us an exciting moment there.
Yeah, it was quite exciting, but look at the way that Castro just doesn't react at all. I mean, I think he was going to let him have that anyway, but there you go. There's a long way to go in this race, and Castro might well come back again. Yeah, for the good evening to everyone watching along, by the way. If that comment that talking about Castro winning all the races in 2025, not entirely true, but he did win a lot of races in 2025. That is definitely true, and yeah, he's struggling so far in 2026. Unusual, certainly, as he heads down the inside of George Gonzaga. We wouldn't have seen this from him last year, fighting really hard for fourth place, and he's back in front again, but you just have the feeling this is going to flip-flop back the other way again on another lap. This is just not getting any better for Andre Castro at the moment.
Oh, let's look at Gonzaga fighting back nearly on the inside to turn number 4. I was expecting a little bit of chicanery as they headed their way into the second chicane. We got a bit of it, but Castro still holding on to fourth at the moment. Now, if you're Andre Castro, who are you worrying about most? Are you worrying about George Gonzaga right behind you? Are you worrying about Kettle Larson, who's usually just there in the fight? He's going to occasionally go for a move, but more often than not, he will be there to pick up the pieces in case racers in front of him come to blows, which is a good strategy. He always does well in these races. I haven't really seen him grab a checkered flag, but I know that he is a quick racer in his own right, not only in these SR10s, but all types of sports car machinery. Or are you maybe worrying about the car of Heinz Braun right at the tail end of this the most? But now we've seen a lot of Heinz Braun going for some aggressive moves. He's been tempered out a bit over the past couple of seasons, but at the core of it all, there is still that very fiery racer who's always going to bring the thunder. So, Ewan, I'll pass this off to you and say that if you're Andre Castro, which one of the 3 racers behind you are you probably worrying about the most?
Well, I would maybe extend it to 4 and say, I'd finish ahead of all of them here. Or 5 even, it would have to be, wouldn't it? But if these guys all get tangled up with one another, you'd say that Barry is going to be faster than all of them in a straight fight and might be able to tear through them all if they take each other off the road. Maybe that is a little bit fanciful and it's not quite going to happen, but if you're Castro at the moment, or Gonzaga, who's now at the front of the group, you're not going to know where to look. Castro's got another good run here off of turn 3, but Gonzaga had a similar one on the way towards turn 4 last time and didn't do anything of it. And neither does Castro this time either. Here comes Larson, here comes Braun. They are going to do something at some point, so it is correct, I think, to worry about more than just the top 2 at the moment in this group.
Yeah, no, this battle has been raging ever since the drop of the green flag, and I don't expect that it's going to cool off one bit. It may break up into a 2-2 affair, considering the gap between Castro and Larson is starting to extend a bit. But as you said at the start of this lap, Yona, there is a lot of truth said and just. James Barry is slowly but surely reeling them in. Underneath the roar of these Ford EcoBoost engines here in these Radical SR10s, you can probably hear the Jaws theme begin to play. The fog is lifting, the visibility is cranking cranking up. I think the track temperatures may be getting hotter as well. But I know one thing is going to get hotter, and that is this battle out there on the racetrack for fourth. James Barry, if he can get a whiff and a crack at it in the final few laps of this race, you know for sure that he's going to try and go for it.
See what happens this time round as they get onto the front straight. The problem for Larson and Braun this time again is that they've got no slipstream. Well, they have got slipstream, sorry, but they're not close enough anyway to do anything with it. Castro is, and Gonzaga's starting to defend a little bit more fiercely this time, I think. And Castro waits. So he sees there's a gap behind, thinks, well, there's enough space for me to wait here, and if they fight here, Braun and Larson, there'll be even more space for them. Braun not able to get through, but it's desperate stuff now. We're in the last 4 laps, and if they want to get in the top 5, they're going to have to do something now.
Yeah, now is the time to pounce, and Heinz Braun knows that. He goes for the move on Kettle Larson off into turn number 4, and he gets it done rather convincingly. But with that small little tussle, may not seem like much. It's going to allow those front two of Gonzaga and Castro to drive away and eke out a gap a little bit. It's just a tick under a second, but still a comfortable gap nonetheless. But look right behind that 4-car of James Barry. He's going to get involved in this battle. I'm convinced of it now. I was thinking maybe a bit of a far-fetched shot, but I often forget that James Barry is a bit of a menace in these race cars. Not saying that he's a bad racer. He's a fantastic racer. He is there's really not much that you can do to derail James Barry's race.
No. Unfortunately, it's been one of those occasions today where he has been slightly derailed by a bit of contact with Havok Gullikson. He's also paid the price, actually, although it's still going to be a 3rd place for Gullikson. It's certainly not going to be for Barry. If he gets to the top 5, he'll have done very well. See how far he can get up the field here, though, as Andre Castro gets into the slipstream of George Gonzaga. Last time he elected to wait. As I mentioned at the time, I think that was an elected choice. Is he going to do that again here? Yes. No, he's not, sorry. He was waiting for a moment there. He was shaping like he wasn't going to go through, and then he eventually does. He comes across on Gonzaga when he nearly didn't have the space. He is now through. But, well, that was maybe a little bit more nerve-wracking than it needed to be. Here comes Heinz Braun as well. He's not going to wait around any longer, surely. With only 3 laps to go, he's got to do something. And Gonzaga knows it too. He goes on the defensive into turn 4. Here goes Braun to the other side. Just as Gonzaga let his guard down. There he goes to the inside line. It only gives it the outside at turn 5. And there's nothing doing there. Just then give the opportunity to Andre Castro to run away.
That was a gutsy lunge from Heinz Braun. I think all 3 of those racers involved in that should be counting their lucky stars and probably eyeballing a trip to the gas station just to buy a lottery ticket, because they really got away with one there. Let's see what Heinz Braun is going to do here. I think Kettle Larson will be happy about running behind, at the very least at the moment, because that gap between this pack and James Barry behind is now, for the first time, less than a second. He has closed up that gap. He is a man on a mission. They're coming to 2 to go this time by, which may not seem like a lot of time, and that's because it isn't, but for James Barry, that's just enough to try and play spoiler.
Surely you can't take 3 in 1 here. I mean, there's one driver in the field who might be able to, then it might be James Barry. But it's going to be very, very tricky, I feel. Here we go. Larson pretty close to Braun. That's the closest of the pairings, actually. Although Gonzaga's getting some slipstream, obviously Castro has no help out front, unlike all the others. Here comes Gonzaga. They're properly racing for it now. No giving of positions anymore. Castro defends properly. Gonzaga not able to go through that time, so it shows that it is possible to defend from the front if your exit is good enough out of the final corner.
And now we're going to start to see the tussling. I'm a little bit surprised that it hasn't been going down the start-finish straight away, but in the run between 3 and 4, we've seen racers go for the moves. We've seen racers go for the dives. Look at Barry going for the dive on Kettle Larson. Everybody going for the jugular today.
That was quite, I mean, it was slightly because of the camera angle, but he seemed to jam it down the inside at turn 4 there, just when it wasn't expected. It didn't seem that Larson was particularly expecting it either, which is never a good sign. But Barry doesn't get any positions for it anyway. These 5 are going to go on to the last lap, absolutely nose to tail, it looks like.
I'm still trying to catch my breath looking at that move from Barry. Oh man, the fact that those two are still out there on the racetrack is unbelievable. I wonder what the damage situation may be though, because that was a pretty significant whack, and these SR10s don't really like body-to-body contact. In the meantime, Christoph Flip, who's driving away, has taken the white flag lap. What we're basically seeing in this race is a fight going on in the parking lot of a cafe while Christoph Flip is eating some pastry and drinking a latte.
It's a lot calmer at the front than it is back here, that's for sure. Nowhere you want to be for a quiet race, and it's not here. Here comes Andre Castro again with his defending. Here comes George Gonzaga trying to squeeze him to the right-hand side of the road. He switches to the outside, and he's going to break late here. He gets the inside for turn 2, but he's very late in turn 1. Here they squeeze through. They're not going to make it. Oh, there's contact there, and Gonzaga just saved himself from spinning. Here comes Larson on both of them, and James Barry as well. This is where the last lap battles are settled. Coming in towards turn 4. That's a real tight moment there for Braun as he pulled in front of Larson. Here comes James Barry for the second lap in a row, diving down the inside at turn 4. Braun's on the inside at 5. Inside for Larson as well on James Barry, but he's persevering. Gonzaga fires again. He can't get there. Barry round the outside at least gets to 7th place.
This is fantastic stuff. If all of you tuning into this broadcast don't enjoy this, you should probably look at sport outside of auto racing. This is incredible. I still think it's not over though. Somebody's gonna go for a dive off into turn 12.
I think they are. They're all leaving an off-track back so they can go and run wide there. A quick moment to appreciate the fact that Christoph Lipp is going to win this race. There goes Gonzaga down the inside of Braun, and James Barry gets them both. He does get his top 5 in the end, and Larson is going to try and challenge him for it. No, he's not going to get there. James Barry gets back to 5th in an unbelievable finish between those guys. Christoph Lipp's going to win the race overall by nearly 6 seconds in front of Sebastian Lipp. George Gonzaga gave it everything. He ends up in 8th position as Castro hangs on to 4th, and James Barry gets his top 5 despite starting the final lap right down the field in 8th position. What a great finish between those guys, and what a result for James Barry. What a recovery for James Barry in that race.
And what a race. That was incredible. You know, I don't think any of us really knew what to expect heading off into this week of the season. When the calendar was released back midway through season 4, everybody looked at this race and was like, Mexico City, Autódromo, Hermanos, Rodríguez, really? What in the world is that race gonna look like? Well, we've seen it. Up at the front, it was tame. Farther behind, though, oh, look at that dive from George Gonzaga from about 18 miles back. Everybody was seeing red there. I know that George Gonzaga is going to be feeling bad about that move. I know a lot of these racers are going to be feeling bad about some of the moves that they made throughout this race. But in the heat of the moment, everybody was duking it out as if it was the last lap of the race, every single lap. So come time for that final lap, my jaw is on the floor at the moment. I may need a crane to come and pick it up.
It was a good finish. I don't think anybody's going to have too many regrets about the last lap, particularly because it was the last lap. But George Gonzaga will certainly have regrets about how it ended up for himself, of course. Christoph Lipp wins though ahead of Sebastian Lipp in a comfortable race at the front. Harvey Gullikson recovered nicely from his half spin to finish 3rd in the end. Andre Castro does a very good job of defending to finish 4th ahead of James Barry, who gets back to 5th somehow. Kettel Larson, Heinz Braun and George Gonzaga are all involved in that group we just saw again there. Robert Woodward and Sully Rettinen get their first points of the season of our broadcasted races anyway in 9th and 10th. Claudi Casamajana finished in 11th ahead of Chris Retz, with Lars-Erik Frydenlund and Ollie Griebe the last drivers to finish. Ole Gullikson retired after his contact which we saw with the wall earlier on. Let's have a chat to Christoph Lipp, shall we? The race winner tonight from Mexico City. Good afternoon, Christoph, and congratulations on a race victory here tonight in the Radical Esports Cup. How do you feel sort of driving around here in a new iRacing circuit? I always find it's interesting to watch drivers get used to a new track in the service. How have you been finding it this week?
Yeah, it was really cool. Of course, for all of us, it was the same. We had to learn this track new with this car. I guess nobody has had any drive or laps on the car, and so you had to spend a bit more time than usual to get to the optimum pace. But I like this kind of track because I like riding the curbs. I like hard braking zones, and of course you also have this fast assets here, and it's a combination of different skills you need, and this fits to my driving.
just how important was it for yourself to get away at the start of this race, because you had a second very quickly? Would it have mattered though if the others had stayed closer, because the slipstream is much less of a factor up at this circuit?
Yes, exactly, Ewan. Of course, it's a bigger risk if the others stay in the draft, but I have seen in other races that if you go to the start-finish line with a half a second gap, you cannot be overtaken. Of course, with a crazy dive bomb or something maybe, but here the slipstream is not so strong, so I think I had the pace to stay in front, but you never know what happens, so of course I was pretty happy to see the gap opening.
Well, congrats on opening that gap to nearly 6 seconds at the front in the end and winning here tonight for the second time this season already. And thanks for coming to chat to us at the end of the broadcast as well.
Yep, cool. Thanks. Cheers, guys.
Thanks very much. That's Christoph Lipp, the winner tonight from Mexico City. Havik Gullikson finishes in third place tonight, and we can chat to him as well. Havik, welcome in. Congrats on third place finish here for you tonight. A top 3 finish for the first time in our broadcasted races for this season. How did you sort of see that battle playing out with yourself and James Barry? That seemed to be the defining point in the race for yourself, really. From there, you just controlled third place. But how was that battle between yourself and James Barry and Sebastian Lipp there for the first half of the race?
It was a very good battle. Happy New Year, by the way. Very good battle. I don't know what happens. I felt I did nothing wrong. I haven't seen the replay, but I think maybe he touched the curb and got a bit wide and turned into me, or yeah, I don't know. Doesn't matter. After that, it was just, as you said, trying to secure the P3, and yeah, it's okay.
And that was looked pretty comfortable towards the end anyway. How have you been finding the Mexico City racetrack here? I've mentioned the same thing to Christoph. Everybody's learning a new circuit this week. How have you been finding it?
It's been very difficult, very, very difficult, because it's the power is not like it is on other tracks because of the altitude. So you have to get to use more acceleration than you're used to, and yeah, it's slippery, I think, so I'm just sliding all over the place, but yeah, I was hoping for a better result today, but after what happened, I'm happy with the third, and congrats to the Lipp brothers with 1 and 2.
Absolutely, and congrats to yourself for your first podium in our broadcasted races of the new year. Thanks for chatting to us, Havik, as always, and congrats again on third tonight.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. That is Havik Gullikson, who finishes in third place tonight. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get Sebastian Lipp in with us, so we'll bid you a farewell very shortly. Daytona will be our venue for next week, as everybody will be racing around there, practicing perhaps for the Daytona 24 hours. It's very much the time of year, Ron, to visit Daytona. I think there'll be a few who are a little bit tired of the venue, but this is before the 24 hour on the Friday, so just to whet the appetite really ahead of the 24 hour race, which will be coming up in less than, or just over 12 hours time actually, when we broadcast here this time next week.
Yeah, see, even though probably by mid-February everyone's going to be Daytona'd out, both with the Daytona 24 and the festivities surrounding it, and the Daytona 500 coming up in a couple of months as well on the NASCAR side of things, I love the Daytona road course. It's been a while since we saw play host to a race in the Radical SR10s. In fact, I think it was my 7th ever race that I got the opportunity to cover here in these cars all the way back in early 2023. Been a while, and I gotta say, we're in for an absolute treat. Now, granted, we'll probably destroy our vocal cords during that show, but we will be happy and very much so excited while doing it.
We absolutely will be, and we'll be live same time, same place on the iRacing and Racebot TV YouTube channels with that Radical Esports Cup 5th round of the season. This has been the first ever Radical Esports Cup event, though, from the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez in Mexico. Big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in tonight for this one. It's been a lot of fun to bring you this one on Racebot TV and iRacing as well. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Ron Mans with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras. Until we all see you again next week, it's goodbye for now.